What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm, of course, John Campea, and we have some absolute madness going on in the industry today. If you haven't heard the news yet, and where have you been, the dust is finally settled on the most insane bidding war in Hollywood history. Paramount Skydance, led by David Ellison, has officially won the battle for Warner Brothers Discovery to the tune of $110 billion. Netflix is out, the Ellisons are in, and the entire landscape of the DC universe just completely shifted under our feet. Now look, the big headline coming out of the Paramount camp today is that according to the reports, Paramount wants to keep James Gunn. They want him to stay on as the architect of the DCU. But guys, I am telling you right now, I don't see it happening. I expect James Gunn is going to walk before this merger is even fully cleared of the regulatory hurdles. Today, we're going to talk about why Paramount wants him to stay, the massive political wall he's about to hit, and the 5 very specific reasons why the Gunn era of DC might be coming to a much earlier end than anybody expected. Let's start with the why. Why does Paramount want James Gunn to stay? Well, it's not rocket science. David Ellison is actually a smart guy, and he's a producer, and he's a tech-forward thinker, and he knows that the crown jewel of the Warner Brothers acquisition isn't just the back catalog of Harry Potter or Game of Thrones. It's the brand new DCU. Now, the reports are already circulating that the new Paramount Skydance leadership sees James Gunn's reboot as the only viable path to maybe competing with Disney and Marvel. They've seen the early numbers on Superman, they've seen the profit margins, they want stability, they don't want to start over for the 4th time in 10 years. They want the guy who has a 10-year plan already written down and has already started to execute. Now, from a purely business perspective, keeping Gunn is the safe move. But here's the thing, and I say this all the time, business and creative soul don't always play nice together. And that brings us to the elephant in the room. We have to talk about the culture clash. It's no secret that James Gunn is a very vocal, overtly political individual. If you follow him on social media, you know exactly where he stands. He has been a fierce critic of the MAGA movement, and quite frankly, many of the figures that the Ellison family is very closely tied to. David and Larry Ellison aren't just quote-unquote business guys. They are major players in the conservative political sphere. We've seen the reports from Variety and Bloomberg. There is a narrative that the new Paramount is going to be shifting towards a more quote-unquote MAGA-leaning content strategy. But James Gunn is the exact opposite of that branding. He is subversive, he's irreverent, and he is unapologetically progressive. Can you really see a world where James Gunn happily reports to a board of directors that represents everything he has publicly fought against? I don't care how many zeros are on the check. At a certain point, the creative friction becomes a wildfire. Gunn has already been fired once by a giant corporation for his past edgy humor. He knows how these corporate winds blow. But listen, don't get me wrong, it's not just about politics. There are 5 other major mechanical reasons why I expect James Gunn to hand in his keys by the time his contract expires in spring of 2027. Reason number 1, the debt cutter's axe. Paramount isn't just buying Warner Brothers Discovery, they're assuming nearly $90 billion in additional debt to do it. To make this work, they've already told investors that they're looking for $6 billion in synergies. And you know what synergies means in Hollywood. It means budget cuts. James Gunn's vision for the DCU is expensive. We're talking massive theatrical slates, high-end TV like lanterns, and a commitment to quality. If the Ellisons start telling Gunn he has to cut $50 million out of the next Supergirl movie or scale back the super films integration, Gunn is going to walk. He's not a cost cutter, he's a filmmaker, he's a world builder. Reason number 2, the end of his creative autonomy. You see, right now, James Gunn and Peter Safran essentially have their own kingdom at DC Studios. Under David Zaslav, they had a direct line. But in the new Paramount Skydance structure, there's a whole new layer of tech-focused executives. Skydance is very into AI-driven recommendations and virtual production efficiencies. Gunn is a guy who likes his practical effects, his specific needle drops, and his creative freedom. The moment he starts getting those notes from tech-first committees about how to make Superman more monetizable for an AI algorithm, he's gone. Reason number 3, the mission accomplished exit. Look at the timing. His contract ends in early of 2027. By then, Superman will have been out, Supergirl will already be in theaters, and Lanterns will have already hit the air. He will have successfully launched the Gods and Monsters chapter of the DCU. He can walk away with his head held high saying, I built the foundation, now it's somebody else's job to maintain the house. He's a filmmaker at heart. He loves the Guardians of the Galaxy. He loves Peacemaker. He might just decide that running a studio under the thumb of a massive debt-ridden conglomerate like Paramount isn't as fun as just getting back behind the camera for an independent project. Reason number 4, a world of options. As I mentioned earlier, we all remember the incident when Gunn got unceremoniously fired at Disney. But what was the result? Every major studio in Hollywood lined up at his door to offer him whatever he wanted to come and create for them. Now, ultimately, he decided to go to Warner Brothers, and the rest is history. James Gunn's stock has only gone up since then, and he knows that as well as we do. And the moment that he walks out of Warner Brothers, his inbox is going to be flooded with offers from everyone. He's going to have a massive all-you-can-eat buffet in front of him. He'll leave, and he'll have his pick of where to go wherever he wants. Reason number 5, the MCU prodigal son returns. Everybody knows James Gunn and Kevin Feige have a very close relationship. I actually had the two of them on my show once together. Gunn even confirmed that when he took the DC job, the very first person he called was Kevin Feige. And prior to leaving Disney, Gunn was actually elevated by Feige to sort of be in charge of the galactic side of the MCU. Feige has changed the industry, but at some point, sooner or later, he's going to move on to new challenges. And right now, there is absolutely no heir apparent to take over Marvel whenever he does decide to do that. James Gunn coming back to Marvel as Feige's main creative general is a win-win. Marvel gets a wildly successful director of MCU films back, as well as somebody who now actually has CEO experience running a comic book film studio, positioned to take their MCU over 1, 3, 5, 9 years down the road whenever Feige moves on to his next challenge. And Gunn gets to work again with a fellow creator he loves and respects in Feige, and is positioned to take over the biggest IP in the movie business. Eventually. I mean, he may or may not end up going back to Marvel. I'm simply making the point that it is very viable and would make perfect sense. So while Paramount is out there saying James Gunn is our guy, I'm looking at the board and I'm seeing a man who is ready to move on. The politics don't match, the corporate structure is shifting towards tech optimization, and financial pressure is going to be immense. And he's just going to have far too many other better options presenting themselves to him. But what do you guys think? Do you think James Gunn will stick it out for the sake of the DCU? Or do you agree with me that once that 2027 contract date hits, or maybe even sooner, he's moving on to greener, less corporate pastures? Jump into the comments and let me know. And listen, while you're here, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We've got a lot more to cover in this whole Paramount Warner Brothers Discovery merger, so stay tuned. My name is John Campea. Thanks for watching.